with the today's class, and then at the end of the class I will going to show you where to write the what you call as the selectors or CSS code. But understand, like, the first thing you have to look at is universal selector. So what is a universal selector is, universal selectors applies the styles to all the elements. Universal, that means it's like announcing all students come in red dress. So you need to understand how to write this syntax. Let's say I take an HTML page. The CSS in CodePen you can write separately, but in Visual Studio Code I'm going to show you how to write the CSS and HTML in the same page. So this part of writing code where you don't write styles and then you write the styles in a separate area which will be applied to the HTML code is kind of called CSS, but there's much more to it which will come and which we'll look at in the upcoming weeks. But how to write it? So what is the universal selector syntax? So you start, and this is how you write all the selector syntaxes. You know how to write styles. So styles you write color red. In the same way you have to write these with selectors. So and this is a notation. This is a selector. Every selector has a different syntax of writing, and you open and close braces, and in between you can write as many properties as you want. Okay, so here like if I say star, then I say color red, you can see all elements are now red. Now I'm just going to walk you through one or two properties for each thing, but that doesn't mean nobody's stopping. Let's say I want to put font size, and I said 30 pixels. Okay. 30. Okay, so I'm just going to explain the rules why. Let me take this out. I think, or okay, this is working. Yeah, it got stuck. Okay. So if you apply font size 30 pixels, you can see everything that the size is becoming 30 pixels. Now these are some of the things which you can do when you want to apply the properties or values or to all the elements present in a page. It is irrespective of whatever the element is. It's a div, it's a p, it's a ul, li. So all these things will get applied. So this is called universal selector. So generally you use universal selectors for, let's say, the default font size, the default color of the text, the default font of family, which we'll see in tomorrow's class, and also you use it so that your page will look uniform irrespective of the things and all the things. So that is a typical use case of the font size or sorry, universal selector. And the next thing you are going to look at is called type selector. So you understand in HTML page there can be multiple elements. So there can be divs, there can be ps, there can be tables and all. So the type selector applies the CSS or the styles to that particular type. Now let's have a close look here. So there is a div, and what is the syntax for writing it? You have to write the type or the element type. That's a div, and in the same syntax you have to write the property and the value. And I said div color orange, so it makes instead of the default color, which is black, it makes all the divs orange color. It doesn't matter how many divs there are. If there is a div at the bottom, okay, you can see this also went to orange. Now again, if you want to put a font size of you can add as many properties. That's what I'm trying to showcase you. It's 24 pixels. In the same way, for all the P, I made color green. So you can see only the paragraph is green. So all other tags are their colors. So div is orange, like UL, the color is changed. And let's say I put background. So red. You can see this is now. Let me make it the color white, and you can see it's being applied for only that P, and how many other P's are there, it will get applied to it. Let's say you put one more P of the thing at the bottom, so it gets applied to that also. So it's the same way. Remember the school analogy I said. Here you are saying to the browser, any div you find, put the color orange, font size 30 pixels. Any P you find, put the color white, and put the background red. So these are the kind of things you can start using when you want. So here what is happening is you are not repeating the styles. Your HTML code is looking clean, and you are writing optimized code because you are able to reuse the styles which you used to write previously in the style attribute. So now there is no style attribute. You can write with what we call as the selectors, and then control how the web page or the styles of the web page look. So it's fine. Like people started using universal selectors, type selectors, but people started facing issues. Like there can be 10 paragraphs in a page, and they want to make one paragraph red, the other paragraph green, or there are 10 paragraphs and then they want to make 4 paragraphs one color, second 4 one color, and the last two, the ninth one very specific color, and the 10th one very specific color. So these are the kind of things which people anticipated, or people want more options to control the style in these for these elements, because there are a lot of divs, there are a lot of paragraphs, there are a lot of tables which you make for one single page. So people came up with this attribute called class. So what is a class? Class is just an attribute you add to any element. So the syntax is like p class space class is equal to whatever, you can give whatever the name. There are certain restrictions, but assume that you can give any name with alphabets and numbers, but there can't be any spaces. Why there can't be any spaces, I will tell you afterwards. And these are like how in a school you are divided into classes or sections. That's the same way. So you are kind of dividing the HTML elements into certain what I say is clusters or certain groups. So that's what classes will provide you. So if you apply a class to 10 different properties or 10 different elements, so you can somehow tell instructions to the browser using your selectors within the class selector, saying that you apply these properties and these values to those class. In the same way, remember the admission thing. So in the same way, if you want a particular style to be associated with only one element, you should define IDs. So IDs, I think you got a basic hint when you're using inputs. So how to write IDs. So that in the same syntax, you can write for any IDs like div or P or UL or LI or tables or H1s or H2s, image, everything you can put an ID. But the main thing you should remember when you are writing an ID is same as the way admission number is unique to your school, the ID should be unique to the page. That means you can't have two elements with same ID. I'm going very slow and repeating again. You can't have two elements with same ID in the page. It causes confusion. Now it might work, but when you start working on JavaScript and all, then it will be much more nightmare. In the same way, if school gives two admission numbers to to same admission numbers to two different people, there will be confusion about his file. There will be confusion about his identity and all, and then it causes a lot of help. So because you are going to put the IDs in a HTML page, just make sure that you don't put same IDs for any different elements. Yes, it should be unique across the whole page, one page. Now let's look at the third selectors, which are class selectors. So I told you how to write classes and what our classes are. So what is the syntax for writing class selectors? I mean, this is how you define a class. So like uh, or it's an attribute. So for divs, this div I wrote a class is equal to class 1. Here you can put any name, and for this I put class 1. Now as a class selector, for this is the syntax for writing class selector. Remember, universal is star. Um, Type selector is the element. It doesn't start with anything. Like remember always the school example. So if it's a class selector, it needs some unique starting thing to understand that it's a class selector. So that is dot. So whenever you are applying or writing styles for a class selector in the CSS, you have to start with dot. Dot means it will look for the class name after the dot. So that's why generally it's not preferred to start with dot. You get confused, and you can see class 1. This is the one to which these properties will get applied. So I'm saying color purple, or let me put font size also so that you can see. So you can see this gets applied to paragraph and div irrespective of the type, because the div also has class 1 and the paragraph also has class 1. So it's like selecting all like all people in the same class, even if it's a type. Let's assume the type are different genders, but all people in the class you are selecting. And if you write this kind of syntax, it will be applied for all. So even if you put let's say I put a H2 saying heading 2 with the same class. Now it's black. Now if I apply it to the class 1, it will turn purple and its font size is 30 pixels. So any element you put the class, those properties and those values will be applied to those elements. So this is the class selector. Again, it will be used. Now you can understand, like whenever you are writing lots and lots of code with same styles, the best approach would be define a class, apply the same class to all the elements, and in the style you write for that class, make what are the properties and what are the values you want. So that is one of the approach you should do. Now coming to the next type of selector, it is the ID selector. Like I said, what ID is a unique thing in a page. So how to use ID selectors? So the ID selectors should be used starting with hash. So they start with hash, whereas the class selector starts with dot. And just remember one thing: you can't have spaces for ID and class selectors. We'll discuss it in some time why it can't be possible, especially for classes. Now this is the syntax for writing the ID selectors. Now you know how to give IDs to any of the elements. You just put ID and where ID as a property, and the whatever ID you want to give as. So these are your own things. You can provide any IDs. It doesn't matter. Now you can see this color red is applicable only for the second div. In the same way for demo 1. If I want to make font size, so always remember I'm playing with only one property and values to show you, but you can write as many things as possible. Let's say I'm saying text align center. You can see these are all being applied. So whatever the properties and what are the values, you can start using it for these selectors. Now, regarding the ID selector, just be very much cautious. There should be only one ID of that, because HTML is shown in the browser. Even if you write multiple IDs, it will not show an error. It will automatically apply it. It's because browsers have a lot of things which can handle even if there are errors, but you will face issues. What I mean by facing issues is, let's say I make one div with ID is equal to demo 1. You should never do it. but I'm just doing it to showcase you what will happen if you put ID1D. You can see the ID selector will get applied. So be very careful. This is because the browser is not, I mean, even if there's an error, browser is automatically considering both as the same ID. It is because of the browser's way of handling things, but you will find it working now, but when you shift to JavaScript, it will not work. Again, when you shift to JavaScript, it will not work because in the HTML page, there are two elements with the same IDs. So never do this. Be very careful with it. Okay, I've just showcased you so that it kinds of displays the properties and values, but it's not the right way of doing it. Okay, so there is one small like I mentioned in the notes also. So it defines a unique ID which must be unique to the whole document. So there is one more selector which we are going to look at today, which is called attribute selector. So let's say like this is how the attribute selector looks. You can use for any attributes. Let's say this is a and like this is a type, and then you want all the A with title with these attributes to become red. So this is the syntax for it. So you can see this Google doesn't have any title. So because it doesn't have any title, it doesn't become red. By default, the browser's link colors are what I say is blue. So it is showing blue, but where it has an attribute of title for a particular element, it is showing it as red. I mean, this you can also extend, like I said, font. You can keep on using as many properties as you want to, and you can see it works. Now look at some of the rules that these follows when you are using these selectors. Okay, so how do you apply multiple classes to the same element? Can you apply multiple classes? Yes. Can you apply multiple IDs? No. It's like your admission number. It should be only one unique ID for an element, but you can apply multiple classes to the element. How do you do it? Again, class. I wrote the example, class. If the second class, it is separated by a space. So that's why it's not suggested to have spaces in class names. Class 1 space class 2. That means you are applying multiple classes to this div. And you can see you are applying multiple classes to this third div, which is class 1, class 2, class 3. So there are 3 classes here. And the first one has only class 1. The second one has only class 1 and 2. The third one has all the classes, class 1, class 2, class 3. In this kind of scenario, how will the rules apply? Now you can see this, the selectors are written for class 1. I put color red, margin 10 pixels. Now you can see the first one has color red and margin 10 pixels, which you are not seeing. All of them have color red. So if you are applying multiple classes, that the class 1, everything will get applied. I specifically choose these properties to be different. I will tell you what happens if the properties are the same, but assume that class 2, the properties are different, saying it is not mixing with the properties in class 1. In the class 3, the properties are not mixing with the properties in class 1 or 2. We are going to see how each of one of them are going to act. So that's why I don't want to rush into changing many things. Remember the problem solving thing. Try to change one thing and see how it performs. Now class 1 has color red, margin 10. You can see it is color red, margin 10. Now class 2 has background color yellow and padding 4. Now you can see from class 2, this has class 2, this has class 2, it has background yellow, and it also has class 1, that's why it also has red and margin. Now the class 3 has border 4 pixels solid black, so it has the color red, margin 10, background yellow, padding 4, and also has a background of border of 4 pixels solid black. So this is what will happen if you have multiple classes. So each of the property will get applied, but here I choose the properties to be not same. Now that's the reason for this one appearing to have margin with red with a, remember class 3 doesn't have any background, and that's how these are working. So if you have multiple classes, all the properties and values will be applied to those particular elements. This is the example where there is no overlap in the properties, understand. And in the same way, the next thing you are going to understand is, let's say there is an ordering. What I mean by ordering is, open. Let's assume you are writing multiple classes and saying that class 1, class 2, or in the second time you write class 2, class 1. Okay, the class ordering we are going to look at. So here I put multiple classes. The first div I put class 1, class 2. The second one I put class 2, class 1. The third one I put class 3, class 4. The fourth one I put class 4, class 3. The only thing you need to understand is the order in which the classes are written in the HTML doesn't matter. It is the order in which it is written in the styles that matters. And when there are two classes, the one which is at the bottom will have more what I says more priority. That means if there is a div, that's why I'm playing with the same properties here. Class 1 is red and class 2 is green. You can see this is appearing as green irrespective of the order of the classes you define in the HTML. Why is it so? It's because of the rules that how the CSS or the browser understands it. So it's kind of that it applies the first class first to all the elements, then it's red, then it applies the second class. So that's the reason for you to see this as green and these as violet, irrespective of the order which you are defining in here. This is one of the major misconceptions people might have, or people don't understand, but understand irrespective of the order you write in the HTML, the order in which you write in the styles or in the selectors in the CSS will matter. So which one is at the bottom will have we will take the more priority, and the element will look in and the properties will look in this that way. So you can see here class 3, that's the reason. You can see irrespective of class 3, class 4. Class 4 I put orange, but even if class 4 is in the starting or class 4 is in the end, it doesn't matter. It looks like purple because class 3 is at the bottom. So that's the reason for putting these examples. Try to understand these examples and see how it's behaving. That's very important for you to understand. Okay, so these are the two things. The next one you are going to see is a bit more what I say is different. So let's say you are defining these the properties multiple times. Okay, again, here what happens is, if it's the same property, then the one which is at the bottom will take priority. If it's a different property, both the properties will get applied. So that's the reason for taking this class 1. So you can see the color is red and it's defined once more with the background yellow, because these two are different. These two are not coinciding. You can see the first one will have red and then and background yellow. So you can define these classes as many times as possible. If I say class 1, or you can write this CSS as many times as possible. If I say font size that 24 pixels, you can see it's applied 24 pixels. In the same way, if you can see in class 2, the first one is red, the second one is green. So but it's appearing green because it's the second one that is taking the priority. Let's say if you write at the bottom with class 2 as again color, let's say yellow. Now because you write it in the bottom, it becomes yellow. Yellow is not so visible. Let's make it black. So you can see because it is at the bottom, even though there are multiple definitions, so the last one will be applied for the properties which are common. If they are not common, all the properties will get applied to that element. So these are the rules which these things are bound. So you try to understand these are rules set in place by the people who define these standards. So you have to understand these rules and you have to apply them. Okay, so now comes, we looked at multiple classes, we looked at multiple definitions, you looked at class ordering. Now comes a mixture of all the things. This is the mixture of all the things. Now I say there is class 1, class 2, class 3, class 4, class 4, class 3, class 5. I'm adding more classes and I'm adding more things. So if there is a mixture of all the things, so all the rules which you are learned till now will appear. Now let's look at each one of this element and try to see how it appears. It has class 1 and class 2. So class 1 has color red and class 2, it has color green. So because class 2 is at the bottom, it will become green. Okay, now again, class 1 has background yellow. There is class 2 doesn't have any background. So it is looking as yellow. But if someone defines a background here as class 2 background red, it will appear red because it is at the bottom. So now again, the next property is margin 10 pixels. It has a margin of 10 pixels. Class 2 doesn't have any margin. Now you can see class 1 has a padding of 20 pixels. I told you padding is top, right, bottom and left. So in class 1 you are defining a padding of 20 pixels. So all the 4 values are being set. But in class 2 you are saying the padding left has 40 pixels. That means it is below class 1. So the padding left, only padding left will change. I mean, I just showcase you by just making it 10 pixels so that you can have the sense of, okay, you can see and make it 60 so that you can clearly visualize. All the other paddings are 10 pixels and only the left padding is 60 pixels. So because it is at the bottom and it is overriding the previous class 1's value. The same is the class with, for this I didn't put class 2, I put class 2-1. Now you can see it has green, but difference between class 2 and class 2-1 is doesn't have any left padding. That's the reason you can see it's here. Now again, and also class 2 I put background red. For class 2-1 there is no background, so that's why it's looking the background of the class 1. It's yellow. The same is a class with class 3-4 and 4-3. The ordering doesn't matter. And I added one more extra class called class 5. So class 3 and class 4, if you remove all these things, it will look the same. These two will look the same. But because I added one more class called class 5, which has these properties, so you can see the border width I'm saying as 4 pixels, so the color and all remain the same. And if I change the border style here, it will become dashed. So the color will remain. So border is a combination of 3 things: border width, border style, and border color. So I've just changed 2 properties. That's why the total property will remain the same from class class 3 or class 4. Yeah, class 4 we defined border red. Now The class 5 has one more extra thing called margin top. So that's why it is having a bit more margin than the third div. So this is what will happen when you have multiple classes and multiple orderings. So you have to logically solve all the things. The first thing you need to understand is whether there are multiple definitions, whether there are multiple classes. If there are multiple classes, which order they are put in place. I'll take a small pause here. Now, this is called priority. Again, for the sake of explanation, I wrote the code with all the things. Okay, there is a first there is no element, just a simple text called hello. Then there is a div which has some text. Then there is a div with one class, and there is a div with class and ID. There's a div with class ID and style. Remember, you can also write styles. So the order in which it takes the priority is always ID and the first one it has is, if you are looking at the increasing order, so the style tag will have the most priority. That means if anything has style, it will apply. So I am considering only one properties. So if anything has style, it will appear in that style. So irrespective of what the ID has. So let's look at the values we have written. For star, we have written color. For div, we have written color aqua. For class 1, you written color blue. ID 1, you written color green. ID 2, you written color green. And like, but let's come from the bottom. So here it has all the things, but it's still appearing red because it has a style. So if anything has style and a property, it will have that as the most priority. Then comes ID. So if you look at this one, it has class 1 ID, and then you can see the ID 1 is green, so it's looking green. Then the priority goes to class. Then you can see here it has div, it is a universal element and a class, but the IDs are not there. So if it's only have class, it will look blue. Then if it's a type, I wrote color aqua, it's looking aqua. And for universal, I wrote like color gray, it's looking gray. So the order of preference is style, then ID, then class, then type, then universal. Okay, you have to remember this order so that you can by seeing the code, HTML code, you can understand how how this element looks. People might be thinking I can use the browser to see it, but you have to have a clear understanding of how the priority works before before applying any of these things. Okay. Okay. Now let's take the sample question for here. Because I don't have pen and paper, I'm solving here. Okay. So I'll make all. The background here. Okay. That's pasting with formatting. Okay. So this is the sample styles given. Okay, this is the sample size given, and this is the element. You have to find out what all the things that it look like. So this is the element. Okay, now what are the properties you need to find for this? You need to find color, width, height, background color, margin right, font size. Okay, so I'm going to solve a couple of properties. So you can see it has 3 classes and it's a div, and it has style and it has ID. So remember the priority. You want to, let's say you want to solve for color. ID has the priority, and the next priority is style. Style has the most highest priority. So whenever you see a style of color red, you can just blindly put that it has the priority because ID has the highest priority. Now let's solve for a couple of more properties. You always go from back to top so that it will be easy for you to solve. Now see font size. Let's see if any here in style font size is not there. In ID, let's see font size is ID2 font size is there or not. ID2 font size is there, which is 20 pixels. So that's all. You don't have to go any more back because ID has the more priority than classes. Now let's look at background color. Here style doesn't have background color. Does ID has background color? Yes, ID has background color of red. Now let's look at width. In style width is not there. In ID width is there. ID width is not there. Now go to classes. Check all the classes with class 2, class 4, class 6 which has width. Okay, class 4 doesn't have width. Class 2 here it doesn't have width, but class 2 and class 4 are defined 2 times. Class 2 width is there, class 4 it is there, and class 6 width is there. So in class 6 and class 2 width is there. Sorry, class 2 and class 6 width is there, but class 6 is below class 2. That means it will look 100 pixels. Now let's look at height. Okay, in class 2 height is there, class 4 height is not there in the below definition. Let's go to above. Here also height is not there. Here height is not there. In here height is not there. So the only thing that has height is class 2 at the bottom one. Now it will look as 50 pixels. Now coming to margin right. Okay. Oh, sorry, I missed one thing. Here ID width is 75 pixels. So ID2, there's 2 definitions. I saw only here. It is at the top. ID2, the width is 75. So because of this, the width will be 75. Look for multiple definitions. If there are multiple definitions, you have to put here. So you can see the width is 75 pixels. Now the style, there is no margin. In ID2, there are margin right is 20 pixels, and in the above one there is margin 10 pixels. So the top one will get applied, then the bottom one. The margin right then will be overwritten by 20 pixels. So the margin right would be 20 pixels. Okay, this is where you put your all the CSS code or what we call a CSS code. There's a style tag. You can write type is text CSS. So you put all your code which I'm showing in CodePen here. Let's say I put star. You can see font size. It will automatically show 30 pixels. Now say div color red. So you can see this is how you write in the file. So again, I'm copying this path. Open it in the browser. You can see this looks red and with a particular font size. That is how you write your code in Visual Studio Code. There is one small thing that I want to show again. So let's say with all these things, you want to build some pages now. Let's say you want to build the boxes. I'm going to show how easy it will become to build the boxes. And you have to build this ability of thinking in terms of CSS code. Let's say I'm going to build the boxes one. Now these are the boxes which you did for the one of the coding assignment. So I'm going to create 10 boxes. Now, now I'm putting a class for it called box. So because it's so these names I try to put as the things which you can easily remember or refer. Now, let's say I want 10 boxes. Now you can see I'm writing the CSS or the file here. Now I say color red, height 100 pixels, width 100 pixels. I don't know what then it is. Wait, spelling this. Now you should see the boxes. Where the boxes? Oh, I put background color. Yeah, you can see 10 boxes. You are not able to see it. Now I put margin 10 pixels. Now let me float them left. So you can see all the 10 boxes are here. Now let's make something like, let's say the layout requires you to make red and blue boxes. The first has red. So I'm just doing one more class saying red BG. So background color red and green BG, background color green. Now I'll apply this red BG to let's say green BG to bottom 5. Now, as you can see, you can apply multiple classes to these all the divs. So let's do it alternative. Green, green, green. You can see that the boxes are already applying. So green, green. Now for this, I want to apply red for the next alternative set. So now let's say after the fifth box, so from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the other boxes I want at the bottom. So where is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6? I'm putting an ID here because I will apply clear here. ID is equal to new line box. So let's say for the new line box, I'm going to say clear left. You can see with very minimal amount of code you are able to achieve. So that's how you can effectively use the classes. I'm using multiple classes here. So this will be, I know this box will be applied for all, but I need a different for different things. So instead of rewriting it, I just created one more classes. And at one point I need for one box, I need to clear. So only for that I created an ID, and then I was able to achieve all the things.